if you are able to get me very well, kindly communicate a word or two so that we are sure that when you begin communicating, we're able to get you very well. Mr. Sima? Okay, he's going to communicate to us soon. Dear members, Mr. Sima Gilbert is the manager secondary department at the National Curriculum Development Center and is the main presenter for the day on the topic interpretation of the A-level syllabus that we have just released recently. And I am Joseph Tibakanya to host you. I am curriculum specialist ICT. You are most welcome. Mr. Sima, just to make sure that we can hear you, just say one or two words, and I'll be able to tell that when you begin communicating, we will not have any issues.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That is proof that I'm online, but also I think this is the time to, I see the live for YouTube is not yet on. Please, let's start it. And as it starts, I have just few guidelines to share. One, this is an opportunity to chat, but when we keep posting, yes, I have arrived, yes, I am in, yes, hi, at times your questions disappear in that discourse. You find that we are not able to address your question because there was a lot of chatting. So I am actually proposing that if you can disable the chat and we strictly use the Q&A for posting questions. Because now I'm seeing I have come, you're welcome, good afternoon. Yes, thank you for greeting us, but we want to pay attention to the critical issue, which is the discussion. So kindly bear with us. I am requesting that we disable the chat and then we use Q&A for posting our questions strictly. And that way we'll be able to attend to the questions effectively. I am not against chatting, but I am in for ensuring that what we have come to do is exactly what we are doing. Two, we shall be having the people who are on YouTube. The people who are on YouTube, still there is a provision for chat. You can send your question or comment through the chat on YouTube. And that way we will be able to attend to it, such that we give each one of us equal access, so that when you are on YouTube, you are still able to submit your question or comment, and so is the person on Zoom. So I see the numbers on YouTube are rising, so I think let's give it like 3 minutes and then we start. So that's what I can say right now, Joseph.
Thank you so much. I think you were loud and clear and we're able to get you very well. So dear members, the communication has been clear that we will use the Q&A for any questions that are pertinent to this discussion, particularly on the interpretation of the curriculum, materials, and in particular, the syllabus. So it would be very good that whatever device you're using, at least you have your syllabus material near you, or on the device you're using. That is, if you can manage them very well, continue attending the presentation while also accessing your syllabus. So that when we give an example in syllabus X, you can also check what yours says. At least you have a good reference to what exactly we are talking about in particular to your subject. So we will continue to have these forms of discussions and discourses depending on the topics we have scheduled, and also depending on the questions you as key stakeholders raise from time to time, because you are the implementers, the key implementers of this curriculum as teachers or administrators in schools. And so, like I said, proper interpretation of the curriculum is the beginning of its success in terms of implementation. So raise as many questions as possible from the topic interpretation, so that this gives us a way forward, as well as new questions that may need to be answered in the subsequent presentations we shall be having. Mr. Sima, I think we will start. Okay. Okay, we are able to see the screen. Kindly tell the colleagues who are not able to join via Zoom to link with us via the YouTube channel, NCDCUG. If you can't use the link we are provided on the flyer, just go to YouTube and type NCDCUG. You'll find us live there. We believe this number should be more than this. So those who are still trying to log in via the Zoom may use the YouTube link we provided, or may just go and access our channel and just click to join. Whether using a phone or a computer, you'll be able to reach us on the live presentations we have now. Okay, Mr. Sima,
Okay.
please,
Ladies and
let's start.
gentlemen, good afternoon. I think we can comfortably start. Maybe I can start by re-echoing what I said earlier, that for purposes of being effective, for purposes of effective attendance to your concerns, we have the chats. Post your question into the question and answer if you are on Zoom, and if you are on YouTube, submit your question in the chat. But that also has implications on the number of chats that are being sent. If people keep continuously chatting on the YouTube, it means that your questions are going to disappear in the chat. So kindly, in the interest of your colleagues, minimize on the chat. We thank you for attending. Minimize on the chat such that the questions are actually picked. And I can see we have quite a number of you online already, so we are starting now. Once again, thank you for coming. And in this presentation, or this sharing, is targeting, for purposes of, let me remove my video such that we focus on real issues. Okay, this training or sharing targets school administrators and teachers of A level, but even those of lower secondary can benefit greatly, because you'll find that some things are actually related or similar. And as we do this sharing, my screen has refused to move. Okay. Our objectives for the session are to explain the curriculum design that was adopted for lower secondary and advanced secondary curriculum, and also to guide participants who are mainly teachers and head teachers and any other stakeholders on proper interpretation of the new curricula with a focus on A-level curriculum. And my presentation outline has, one, I'll be explaining the curriculum designs. Then I will also be explaining the major sections of the syllabus book. I will be focusing on the A-level. Then we shall be doing together an analysis of the learning outcomes to see what exactly is therein. Then, based on the questions I have been receiving from the public, I will share some information on teaching of practicals. And this cuts across lower secondary and A-level. And thereafter, we shall have a conclusion and then have questions to respond to. Curriculum designs. There are several curriculum designs being used across the world. Today, I am going to explain 6 of them. The first one is subject-centered design. This design basically focuses on specific subjects or disciplines, and the content is organized around subject areas. And this design mainly emphasizes knowledge acquisition in the respective subject areas. For example, you can say our curriculum has the subjects of physics, chemistry, biology, and then you arrange the content that learners study around those subjects. And I'm sure to the people online, this sounds familiar to a number of us. Number 2, the learner-centered curriculum design. This prioritizes the students' or the learner's needs, interests, and experiences. This design emphasizes active participation, problem solving, talent identification for personal growth. Take an example. If a person joins a school and all they have is, in this school, we are training people how to play football. But whereas they are all playing football, there is a student somewhere who is interested in goalkeeping. The one in goalkeeping is given content and skills that are specifically looking at goalkeeping and commanding the backline. And this is not necessarily the same as what a person who is training to become a striker goes through. So in the end, whereas they are all part of the same team, but the kind of training is different, and that difference is based on the interests of the different learners. For example, there are cases where a student can join, but their interest is in farming. And you find that because your interests are in farming, you deal with mainly farming and other people do other things. It is based on the learner's interests. The third, problem-centered design. This is organized around the real-world issues or changes. It encourages critical thinking, collaboration, and practical application of knowledge. The example I can give here is the Sabertooth curriculum. Is it Sabertooth? The one whereby they were training people how to catch fish with bare hands. So you get into that kind of curriculum, you are taught how to identify fish and how to quickly move, swiftly move in order to get that fish with bare hands. So the issue was solving the problem of hunger. So you had to critically think on how to deal with that. And that is another approach to curriculum design. Another one is competence-based design. Competence-based design focuses on developing specific skills and competencies. Competence-based design does not observe the number of years for a person to be competent. Competence-based design requires that when a student is competent, they move on to the next level. So students' progress is determined by their ability to demonstrate acquisition or mastery of specific skills. So you don't have to say that I must be in the class for a year for me to be able to progress. No. You can be in the class for 2 months and you are free to progress because you have acquired the competencies intended for that class. And someone else in the same class for the same learning can take, say, a year, when another one took 2 months. That is okay. That's the design. That's how competence-based design works. The key issue with competence-based design is, are you competent? Yes or no? So if you are not competent, then you will still be at that level. The fifth is activity or experience-centered design. This builds around hands-on activities and experiences. And learning happens through exploration, projects, and real-life tasks. Recently, I was watching a video clip on WhatsApp where students were saying that for them, they have learned how to make fuel. And they were making fuel, selling it to border. So they are doing it hands-on. And their learning is basically by exploration. And they are taking it on as a project. And because of that, it has forced them to read a lot of content that is related to that project. And in so doing, they have been able to make some gains in a sense that they have sold that fuel to the border people, and they have been able to ride their borders, go wherever they are going and come back. So theirs is experience design. And the last one is the integrated curriculum design. The integrated curriculum design combines elements from multiple approaches that I have shared above. For example, a combination of problem-centered design and competence-based design would enable students to solve real-world problems while mastering specific skills at the same time. The reason for choosing one design over the other is normally informed by the cost implications involved. For each of these designs, they are cost implications. For example, if you're to say that you take a purely competence-based design, it means that you must be ready to take on the gifted students, and if they are done in 1 year, as opposed to 3 years, then they should be able to progress the next level. Now, at this point, I want to pose some questions to think about. What curriculum design was used for the A-level curriculum that we had? And if you have an answer to that question, also ask yourself this question: is it similar to the curriculum design that we have for this new one? And if the answer to that is no, if you say that the one we had is different from the one that we have now, then the follow-up question is, if no, how does the change in these designs affect teaching, learning, and assessment? I hope you've taken care of those questions. So for now, let me progress. We shall review those questions at the end of this presentation. Major sections in the syllabus. I imagine that all of us have received the syllabus documents. And if you have received the syllabus documents, that syllabus document has major sections. Section 1 is talking about the introduction. The introduction presents the reader or the user of the syllabus general information on or about the syllabus. It presents information about the key changes in that syllabus. It presents information about classroom-based assessment. It presents information about how to take care of learners with special educational needs. It presents information about what are generic skills, what are they, and how are they grouped. It also identifies the cross-cutting issues. What are the cross-cutting issues and what are they? What are the values that this curriculum intends to develop among the learners? How about the use of ICT as a pedagogical tool? How is it, what is it supposed to address? Some of the questions that people have been sending me on email and on WhatsApp, projects, what are they? And what is it about projects? The rationale, why should you teach a given subject, or why is a given subject on the curriculum? And how much time has been allocated? And related to the amount of time allocated, there is also something like a program planner. Actually, not like, there is a program planner which guides on which topics to teach when and how much time has been estimated for each topic. You can take more time or less, but there is that provision. Guidance on how to interpret the second section is also provided. So in other words, most of the questions that I have received from the public, the answers are written down clearly in section 1 of your syllabus. You just need to create time and read through it. Section 2. Section 2 gives the detailed syllabus. We are going to have more time in section 2, but I would encourage that for the teacher or the head teacher or anyone who wants to understand this curriculum, before you run to section 2, it would be good to take just a few minutes and read through section 1, because it will help you interpret section 2 better. Section 3. Section 3 is about assessment. Some people have been sending me questions about assessment, yes. But section 3 gives a brief guidance on school-based assessment and end-of-cycle assessment. So instead of sending NCDC a message, first read that, and then you ask for things that are not written there, because that one will be much faster for all of us. Now, I want to quickly dive into section 2, which is about the detailed syllabus, such that we are able to together walk through this detailed syllabus and try to interpret it together. The detailed syllabus, first of all, it has a topic on top. It has the duration, the number of periods that have been estimated for that topic to last. It has a competency. I think some of these I talked about them briefly in the last presentation. So in an event that you find that I am rushing over some things, it's because I talked about them in the previous presentation, and that presentation is readily available on YouTube. So kindly make use of it in case there is something I could have skipped in this one, such that you're able to again follow up. But for now, let's continue. A competency stating what the learner should be able to do at the end or as a result of studying this topic. And this competency is emphasizing the learner's ability to apply their learning in a range of situations. This has not been like this in the past. So you have learned, yes. So where can you apply your knowledge and in which situations? Then we also have learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are to the extreme left of the page. And these learning outcomes are actually stating a measurable statement of knowledge, understanding, skills, generic skills, values, and attitudes that are expected to be learned. Now, someone might say, are all these in this statement? The answer is yes. And before this webinar ends, I will show you where they are. And it is the interpretation of the learning outcomes that is going to clearly show you on where we are going and what is expected. Now, the learning outcome we've already seen is a measurable. Measurable is the key word there. Statement that articulates, now, knowledge, understanding, skills. Now, skills include process skills, generic skills, and subject-specific skills. And then in addition to that, you have values and attitudes expected to be learned. When you look at my color codes, each of the color codes has a lot of significance. For example, measurable, there is a verb. Every learning outcome should have a verb that measures the level of demand. And then every learning outcome should state the knowledge, understanding, the skills to be acquired. And then they're supposed to be acquired by the learner. The action verb in any learning outcome determines the level of demand and the nature of activities to use in the sample learning activities column. So the issue is, if you take time to ask yourself a question, the verb that is used for the teachers on the call, these verbs are mainly informed by Bloom's taxonomy. So the verb that has been used determines the level of demand on the learner, not on the teacher. The level of demand on the learner. And because of that level of demand, the nature of learning activities to be used to acquire that is different. And we shall be seeing some examples. So let's look at a simple learning outcome. This learning outcome is picked from food and nutrition subject. The learner should be able to apply detergents appropriately for cleaning different kitchen surfaces. And then it has USVGS. U standing for knowledge, S standing for skills, V standing for values, and GS standing for generic skills. Generic skills are also part of the skills anyway. When you look at this learning outcome, let me guide on how we can dissect it. The learner should be able to apply. Apply is the verb. Apply is the verb for this learning outcome. So what is the learner applying? The learner is applying detergents appropriately. You don't just apply detergents anyhow. So if you take time and read through this, it means that this learner is going to be exposed to different detergents. And this learner should actually apply these detergents. And because of the word appropriately, it means that this learner has to make choices when they are applying detergents. And where are they applying these detergents? On different kitchen surfaces. So if I am to break down this learning outcome, this is what I would have. 1, the knowledge in this learning outcome or the understanding, classification of detergents. Because if I am going to apply detergents to different kitchen surfaces, that means I need to have different detergents and should be able to classify them. Either I classify them by the cleaning power, or I classify them by their usability for the different surfaces, but there is an issue of knowing which detergents, classifying them, and the cleaning surfaces that are up, the detergents that are appropriate for which cleaning surfaces. Meaning I also need to know the different cleaning surfaces in the kitchen. That is the knowledge. When it comes to the skills, appropriate use is coming out strongly here. Appropriate use of detergents. You might be knowing how to classify them, but in addition to classifying them, you need to know how to use them properly. You also need to have an issue of environmental awareness. Let me give an example. Geisha soap is a detergent. Can I use it for washing cups? Who will take that tea? Or who will use that cup after I have used it? Or if after I have washed it with geisha? The issue is, it's not that geisha is not a detergent or even Omo. It is a detergent, but it is not the appropriate for cleaning the cups. Maybe it is appropriate for cleaning the floor. So the learner is supposed to go through all this discussion and all this understanding and skills. The values, respect for humanity comes in. For example, if I am respecting that if people are going to use this cup, then I don't need to use it to clean it using geisha. Care for equipment, responsibility comes in. Also, the value of cleanliness while you are in the kitchen comes in. These are values that are all part of this learning outcome. And that's not all. Performance indicator. There are performance indicators in this. 1, ability to follow procedure while cleaning surfaces. For example, if you're going to clean the worktop and the floor, can you say, I'm going to start by cleaning the floor and then I later come and I clean the worktop? There's an issue of following procedure coming in here, but it is not mentioned anywhere in the learning outcome. But by mere fact that you're using apply detergents appropriately for cleaning not one surface, but different kitchen surfaces, it means that there is an implied performance indicator of ability to follow the procedure for cleaning surfaces. Next, level of demand. Level of demand, if we have 3 levels, the lower level is knowledge and understanding, The next level is application. And then at the upper level is synthesis and creating. You're going to find that this is at medium level, whereby you are applying the acquired knowledge in a new environment, because you might not have the same kitchen layout all the time. So if you're going to apply this knowledge, if you're given a different setup of the kitchen, then you should be able as a student to quickly adjust and apply the knowledge that you have acquired in a different setup, but still kitchen. Next, nature of assessment is also implied in this. With this can be done through school-based assessment, whereby the teacher, as you're teaching, you are observing how the participants or how the students are doing it. And that's why in that section 3 of the syllabus, you'll find that triangle with a green, solid green color that is talking about conversation, observation, and product. School-based assessment, you are observing how the learners are doing it. And where they are going astray, you are guiding them, because school-based assessment is also helping people get it better as they learn. When it comes to end of cycle, this can also be set as a practical exam for end of cycle. So that is it. All this, the knowledge and understanding, the level of demand, the values and attitudes, performance indicators, the skills and nature of assessment are all in this learning outcome. It is after you have broken down your learning outcome to this level of analysis that now you'll be able to say, okay, so what kind of learning activities are appropriate for teaching this learning outcome? Will dictating notes do? Maybe yes for you, but for me, I don't think so. If I came to dictate notes on this learning outcome, I will have robbed that child of their opportunity to learn. The best way is to make these learners get practically involved in the cleaning of kitchen surfaces, but we do it as a learning activity. And when you look at the syllabus, it is at this level that you're able to suggest appropriate teaching and learning activities and even assessment. Let me look at a different subject. My next learning outcome, I'm picking it from geography. This learning outcome for geography, the learner should be able to evaluate. Evaluate is at a high level in Bloom's taxonomy. Evaluate. What is the learner evaluating? Plans and strategies for what? Aimed at promoting agriculture. Where? In Uganda and other developing countries. This is a learning outcome. It is complete. Now, with this learning outcome, you're going to find that the knowledge and understanding for this learning outcome, the types of agriculture in Uganda, they are here. Because if you are going to promote agriculture in Uganda and other developing countries, what are you promoting? You need to know it. agricultural practices. You need to know the agricultural practices in Uganda and other developing countries. Ways of improving subsistence agriculture. Because the agriculture in developing countries is mainly subsistence agriculture. So if it is subsistence agriculture, then you need to know the kind of agriculture that is there, and thereafter you evaluate plans and strategies aimed at promoting that agriculture. Skills. These people, the action verb is to evaluate. So if it is to evaluate, then the whole issue is, before I evaluate, I need to gather information. So one of the skills implied is information gathering, information analysis, providing feedback is implied, but it is not written there. Critical thinking, you have to think critically about the information that has been provided. And critical thinking is being provided as a generic skill somewhere. Critical thinking, problem solving. You are solving problems because you're looking at, are these plans really capable of promoting agriculture in Uganda and other developing countries? Problem solving is part of that. Values, care for the environment is there. Respect for humanity, because if you're going to have plans that are not going to respect humanity, then it is going to be very difficult for your plan to be worth talking about as far as promoting agriculture in Uganda and other developing countries is concerned. National consciousness. What does the nation, what is this nation about? And patriotism. All these are integrated in there. Another one is performance indicator. Ability to select, this is not this section, selection of feasible solution. Sorry about that typing error. It is supposed to be selection of feasible solution. There are several solutions being promoted, but which one are you going with? And explaining ideas clearly. You will not just select a feasible solution by just not talking or not presenting your work. And that's why when you come to suggested teaching and learning strategies, you find that learners are supposed to research, such as are supposed to maybe in groups, come up, analyze information and come up with the best, and then come and present their work to the rest of the class and have the rest of the class discuss some of those. Those are informed by what is integrated in the learning outcome. The level of demand is high because it involves making judgment. Making judgment. Then the nature of assessment, this can be school-based assessment, but it can also be done under end of cycle assessment. So those are two learning outcomes. When you go to the syllabus, you'll find you can now use this knowledge. You can revisit this video. It is still going to be there on YouTube, and see whether the activities presented or the activities that you're going to use to teach this learning outcome as an example will help you or will help the students acquire these skills. Because these skills are actually for students, not for the teachers, because it is student-centered in a way. Now, I'm going to look at my last, this one I'm going to quickly run through. This is picked from the subject of biology. The learner should be able to operate a light microscope. operate a light microscope. It's the learner who operates a light microscope. I know in cases, having worked as a teacher of science some time back, I know that there are cases where the teacher operates and the students see the teacher operating. Learning outcome requires the student or the learner to operate the light microscope, and as they operate it, they are observing tissues from plants and animals under different magnifications. So this definitely it implies that there is an issue of changing magnifications as you operate this, but also there's an issue of observing tissues from plants and animals. So with that, let me share with you the knowledge and understanding. This person should know how to use the microscope. And also, because of this, the knowledge that is implied in here, the structure of tissues in plants and animals is in here. And performance indicator, definitely ability to use the microscope. Then values, respect for humanity is going to come in here. And the environment. Because as you pick your specimen, you're going to be guided. Don't leave the plant when it is actually struggling. No, pick the specimen, but let the plant keep on living. The same applies to when you're doing the same for animals, when you're picking the animals. There is also an issue of taking care of this microscope. Responsibility comes in. Skills, how to use the microscope, then nature of assessment, school-based assessment, but it can also come in end of cycle, level of demand, medium, because you are applying. This is at a lower level than the one we started with of food and nutrition. Because the other one, you were applying it in a new environment. Here, you are applying it in the learning environment. The one of the new environment is actually at a higher level. So that is a way you can ably analyze learning outcomes. My suggestion is, as a department in your school, can you have a session when you get as either Department of Science or Department of Humanities, whatever, you can sit on a subject and analyze together these learning outcomes. They will help you appreciate the most appropriate learning activities that will help you acquire or that will help you teach or guide learners acquire these learning outcomes. Still on the detailed syllabus, we have a section on suggested learning activities. Suggested learning activities or approaches, they are the ones suggested. That's not all that has been provided. They are just samples. So as a teacher, you can add on your own. But they are approaches for engaging the learner for the acquisition of the learning outcome. And I think I kept talking about this throughout the analysis of learning outcomes. So I don't need to spend more time here. But these are the learning, these approaches will help you or help the learner acquire the knowledge, the skills, the values, the attitudes, and the cross-cutting issues that are embedded in the learning outcome. Now, when it comes to learning outcomes, there is something that we have been talking about. We talked about it under lower secondary, and here it is still there at A level. DEAR. DEAR standing for discovery, explanation, application, and analysis. This is an acronym. And this acronym is actually guiding that as you set or as you try to design your learning activities, ensure that the learning activities have opportunities for the learners to discover. Ensure that the learning activities have the opportunities for the learners to explain. Ensure the learning activities have the provision for the learners to analyze the situations and apply what they have learned in a number of situations. The issue is you do not have to have all these appear in one learning outcome. Some learning outcomes might have one or two. Some learning activities, sorry. Some learning activities can have one or two one or two of these of the four. So if you find that your learning activity has all of them, that is a super activity. But if it has one or two of these, then it is good enough. In most cases, it has about two of them, because in most cases, explanation or explain happens in almost all of them. They are not supposed to be in any order. At times, they can start with application, and as they apply, they discover. And then at times, they can start with analysis, and then after analyzing, they apply, and so on and so forth. So the order does not matter. Next, assessment strategies. These assessment strategies definitely will depend on what you have planned under the learning activities. And these are ways through which the teacher can tell whether the learner is actually progressing in terms of acquiring the intended knowledge, skills, values, attitudes, and cross-cutting issues in the learning outcome. So that one does not have that one does not have to be something very, very complicated, because you will have done a lot of work in coming up with the learning activities. So because of that, because you have come up with the learning activities, so how to assess it now will be almost automatic. Before I close, I want to address myself the issue of pre-teaching practicals. This has been a general concern that when people open the syllabus, they are not seeing practicals. Yes, practicals are not there, written as practicals, but practicals are there because you have a lot of practicals almost everywhere. And the nature of teaching practicals that we have been used to has been the one of saying that if we are going to determine the refractive index of glass, then you are given a procedure, and then in that procedure, you read the procedure, you act on it. You read the procedure, you act on it. That is as good as following instructions. the learner is just following instructions. They are actually not doing practicals that are going to help them discover. They are not going to do practicals that are going to help them analyze the real world. So the approach to doing practicals is using scientific inquiry process, as opposed to the traditional approach that is on use of or that is on following procedures. Now, this is how it works. In the scientific inquiry process, you start by a question. For example, in primary, I learned that plants make their own food. And when they make their own food, green plants, they use sunlight as a source of energy. So my simple question would be, if plants make their own food and this food is in form of starch, is there a high concentration of starch in the leaves during the day compared at night when there is no sunlight? That can be a guiding question for me. So I want to find out, what do I want to learn from my experience, my experiment? I want to learn whether leaves or green plants have a high concentration of starch during the day in the leaves compared to the night. Because leaves are the ones responsible for making food for the plant. And that is what I want to learn. So what I do thereafter, I come up with a hypothesis, which I've already mentioned, a prediction of what you think will happen and why you think that way. For example, my prediction in this is that plants have a high concentration of starch in the leaves during the day, because that's the time when they are making their own food using sunlight as a source of energy. And that's what I want to learn. That's what I want to find out. And this is informed by what you have in your learning outcomes across. Next step, after having my hypothesis, I'm going to come up with a procedure. Now, this procedure is not similar, is different from the one whereby you find a booklet for practicals and someone has a booklet for practicals and then you're doing practicals that way. No. This procedure, the student is coming up with a procedure guided by the teacher that is based on the hypothesis that they have made. Step 2. Now, someone might ask a question and say, will every student have a different practical? The answer is no. You can have, the way you have been having the same practical for measuring refractive index of glass done by all students. You can have students even work in groups to do this practical. A different set of procedure can be developed by the different groups and allow them to make use of this procedure and work with it. Allow them to make mistakes in some of these things such that they can learn from them. So if the procedure for group A is very detailed and the procedure for group B is not as detailed, trying to tell them, but your procedure is not as detailed can help. But allow them also, as they try to carry out the experiment, let them find out that, wait, I think our procedure is lacking something. We need to add it. And that way, you will be enabling them to critically think about what they are doing, to analyze what they are doing. They'll be able to solve the problems. All the other skills that we've talked about earlier will come out. Next is data. So after they have come up with a detailed procedure, then they can now carry out the experiment. And after carrying out the experiment, then they come up with their results, which can be presented in form of charts, tables, sketches, photographs. And these students should be able to explain their results. After explaining their results, then depending on what they wanted to achieve and what has come out of their experiment, they should be able to say in summary or in conclusion, this is what we can conclude about plants making their own food, either at night or during the day, and how it affects the concentration of starch in the leaves. If I have not presented this information properly for the biologists, please forgive me. I'm not a biologist. But that's what I felt would help. I am drawing it from the science of primary such that we are able to understand. So this skill is transferable across all subjects where practicals are necessary, because practicals are also helping the learners develop some of these skills. By the way, they can even be done in form of a project following almost the same procedure. So that is it that I can share for us or with us today. In conclusion, the curriculum design informs the choice of implementation pedagogies and assessment. Number two, the interpretation of the curriculum, and more specifically, the learning outcome, guides the teacher on the most appropriate teaching and assessment approaches to be used. And finally, I propose that at school level, if you can sit as a department and collectively organize, you can use this video, it will still be there on YouTube, and analyze. If you together analyze, like let's say term one, then you will have equipped yourselves with skills to analyze the rest of the terms, either as individuals or you can continue to do so as groups. Just before I end, I come back with the questions I had midway this presentation. What curriculum design was used for the A-level curriculum that we had? Is it similar to what we had? No, what curriculum design was used for the A-level curriculum? This other one that we have now. Is it similar to what we had in the previous curriculum? And if no, or if yes, how does this affect teaching, learning, and assessment? So that has been my presentation for today. Thank you very much for listening to me. I can now use this time to get to some of the people are still asking the question of how many papers. Mr. Muganda Michael is asking how many papers. I have answered this question several times and I will not get tired of answering it again. Right now, NCDC and UNAIP are working on assessment modalities. And these assessment modalities are meant to guide on the assessment papers. However, assessment for a competence-based curriculum is mainly looking at the assessment of the acquired competencies. And I know this question is recurring because we have had a long period when teachers are teaching papers and not the subject competencies. So since this is a new change, my proposal is, yes, we are going to share information, but right now it is not ready. So attend to the learning outcomes, not the papers. Because when it's time for assessment, we are going to try as much as possible to make sure that we do assessment for the learning outcomes, not the papers. Someone is asking whether we should be, they are supposed to implement A-level the way they have been doing with O-level. My question is, after this presentation, really, what do you think? But me, I think it is more to do with how you've been doing O-level, but even in O-level, we realize that there were some gaps, some of which have been addressed in this presentation. So kindly, yes, but also make it better. John Kawesi is asking about papers. I've already answered that. Even Samsung is asking about papers. Now, was there a change in the novels and plays in languages, especially literature? Literature, there was a change. First of all, there was increase in the tenure on the period for the novels that had been approved. And with a changed competence-based, we realized that there is a need to make some minor adjustments. So the novels continue, those that had been approved to run for, I forget the period, but it should be around 2024. I don't know whether it's 2028 or something. Those ones, they are still running. But there is a circular coming through on how to deal with them. It is no longer an issue of doing all of them, but they are all still on the syllabus, but there is some minor adjustments, but the novels are still the same. Fred is asking about the papers. Papers again, papers, activities of integration. Activities of integration, like you have seen the presentation, you'll find that some of the things like activities of integration, projects, will help teach most of these things better. And if you try, let's say, to dictate notes, you will not have helped the students. Because at the time of assessment, assessment will be looking for all these skills that I have shared with you. So projects, activities of integration would help the learners practice most of these things. Are we admitting transitional candidates? Yes. Papers have already answered. Papers have answered. Novels have answered. Basically, it looks like most of the questions are about papers. Infinix Hot 9 Play is saying which subjects whose papers have been reduced or merged. That one I cannot tell now, but we shall communicate along the way. When will the respective subjects elements of construct be released? Same thing. They'll be released at the same time. Have you catered for transitional candidates? I've just explained that. They can also join in and continue. Someone is saying that I've chosen subjects that are seemingly practical, but even when you go to literature, it is still the same thing. If I had this, maybe the next, these online engagements will continue. So next time I will use literature, but the interpretation is the same. The interpretation is the same. Someone is asking about the textbooks. The textbooks are similar, the same textbooks that you have been using, because what is inside has not changed. The person asking about the textbooks, I refer you to the presentation I made last time. It is still on the NCDC YouTube channel. It would help you understand how that works. Manage periods issue, which was the session. Someone is saying, was the session meant for science subjects? I had geography as one of them. If you feel geography is not science enough, then the next session we shall see how to take care of more. But geography was one of the examples I gave. Basically, I'm seeing most of the questions about papers. Someone is saying my concern is some of the class-based activities. Yes, please.
There is a question from a teacher of ICT. And the teacher says they have limited access to computers, yet the new syllabus requires that they teach the subject practically. What do they do?
That question is not for a curriculum designer. That question, I'll send it back to the head teacher. That one is not mine. The head teacher and the Minister of Education headquarters, that one is not mine. Thank you. I request the president again explain the levels of demand. The levels of demand, you can kindly, I request you to pick interest in reading about Bloom's taxonomy. The levels of demand are there explained.
Maybe Mr. Sima, the other one is about to, I think an explanation about DEA. Maybe is it Kabanda? They could go and access their primary pages of the syllabus. The information is detailed there. We shouldn't leave that out.
Yes, that one. Some of the information is actually in the syllabus documents. They just need to be read, just that we have not yet distributed the hard copies. But in the meantime, most of this information is there. We wish to know the number of papers.
There is another one. Do we still have continuous assessment as
yes.
in O level?
Yes. Someone is saying, for the case of biology, is it the only practicals that are going to be done? are those on the topics we have listed in the syllabus? Then how are we to set the items of the learners? Ronald, I have not understood your question. Maybe, Joseph, if you have understood it, you can break it down for me.
I didn't get that very well.
There is a question by Ronald. For the case of biology, is it the only practicals that are going to be done? Are those topics we have listed in? I have not understood that question. We are not sending textbooks for this curriculum. No, we are using the textbooks that are already there.
I think he's asking if those are the practical topics that have been listed in the syllabus. I think as he has interpreted or read in the syllabus, how are they setting the items for learners, especially I think the practical, I think that's what he wanted to mean. How will they set items? I think this is for the future. Or
This
when
is
we
okay,
come,
if it's for the future, the issue is we are going to provide more guidance on assessment because we are still working on it. Matters assessment, we are going to provide more information. Someone is saying how many projects? How many
I think that one
projects?
still will come in the future.
Yes, that one also will come. Joseph?
There's this issue somebody is bringing, is saying, from your explanation and interpretation, the syllabus interpretation is likely to be subjective. In the event that NCDC has not indicated the depth of the content to which different topics should be taught, how will our different interpretations be harmonized by UNEB when they set an end of cycle exam?
Okay. But the difference in interpretations has been there. This is not the first time. So may I not lie you and say that you are, but the issue is understanding the learning outcome. So we shall continue to guide on how to interpret learning outcomes. If you have read the learning outcomes, then maybe in the subsequent trainings, you can bring out a learning outcome and then we together dissect it. But for now, it is still more of information sharing. So it is still, we are still chasing a number of other.
Why is PE not offered at A level?
That one I refer
learners
them to
wish
the
to offer it.
previous. I refer them to the previous presentation. The explanation is there. The people asking about the textbooks, I also refer you to the previous presentation, but even in this one, I've said that we are not expecting new textbooks. Interpretation is likely to be subjective. Yes, this one you've just talked about. Someone is asking about performance indicators. Performance indicators, these are what will show that I've actually done the work or I am able to do the work. Performance indicators. If a person is cleaning a surface, performance, what shows that someone can actually clean well this surface? Those are performance, indicators of performance. So I might not give for every subject, but indicators of performance based on the competency or learning outcome.
Maybe this came from, apart from those that have been repeated on the YouTube, for the people on YouTube, there's this one that somebody asked, when are we doing physical retooling?
Physical retooling. Yes, physical retooling is going to be there. Physical retooling is going to be, we are starting on April 30th, no, on March 31st. We are starting on March 31st. So physical retooling will also be there. And we are going to be communicating the retooling program. So actually training program, not retooling, training program. Yes. Any other question on YouTube?
Another one from YouTube, I think this one was asking a harsh one. Where was UNEB when you were developing your curriculum without developing the assessment techniques too?
No, that question is not harsh. That question, I can answer it like this. You first develop the curriculum, then you develop how to assess it. It is an issue of procedure. So it's not that where was UNEB, no. It is which one comes first. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think most of the questions that are on YouTube are good, but I like this comment, Mr. Sima, that I like the practicals to be done in this new curriculum. It aligns well with us at the universities, because when these learners come to universities, we teach them research, which really relates to, I think the writer ended somewhere, but it was a very nice comment to hear.
Thank you for the comment, but there is one I'm picking from YouTube again. So, do we have a new syllabus for GP? The answer is yes. And actually, GP, if you have not been paying attention to GP before, it's actually time to pay attention to GP seriously. And I will leave it at that. If you have not been paying attention to GP, please pay attention to GP seriously. Yes. So Joseph, I think I have no more questions. It's been a pleasure having all of you online. It is 4 p.m. and I've been glad to be part of this wonderful discussion. How I wish it were physical, such that we are able to have this kind of engagement in a way that enables us to share physically, but we will get there. We are coming for it, and thank you for being a part of this. I hope that in a week's time, maybe Tuesday, again, we are likely to have another one. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Sima, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you so much, dear participants, teachers, docents, and other stakeholders, because I learned that there are other stakeholders who kept on inboxing me for they had maybe a failure to attend, but later they were able to link us to via the YouTube. Please, you can encourage the colleagues that when we have another one next time, we come, learn together, and this would help us implement the curriculum the best way we would like to see. Thank you so much. Till we meet again.